Message this morning is entitled Meekness or Blessedness and Rest. And we're going to tackle the topic of meekness. The scriptures come from Matthew 5:5 and then Matthew 11:28 and 29. So Matthew 5:5, which is part of the famous Sermon on the Mount, blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. And Matthew 11:28 and 29 says, come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from you, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest in my souls. So, I got to give you a little background here on some definitions of some words before we get into kind of the meat of this. And the first one is, what does meek mean? Okay? Because we always think of meek like a little church mouse, which I hope there are no church mice in here, but because some of you would be standing in the pews probably. We think of them as being meek, and that's not always what it means. Meek, one of the definitions is enduring injury with patience and without resentment. Enduring injury with patience and without resentment. Okay? And deficient, okay, is another one. Another word, or another definition of meek is deficient in spirit and courage. Okay? And the third definition is not violent or strong. Okay, so we have enduring injury with patience and resentment, being deficient in spirit or courage, and meekness can also mean not violent or strong. We're going to talk for a minute about denotation and connotation, so you're going to get a little English lecture here for just a minute or two. And if you don't remember what denotation and connotation means, denotation means the literal versus connotation, which means how we associate the word. Okay? I'm trying to think of a good word that we do, but sometimes we associate words in different ways. Okay? Sometimes the female dog word is used, and we don't mean it in the way that we mean a female dog. You all can fill in the blank on that one. Okay? But the true definition is a female dog, but we connotate it totally differently. Okay? And if you ever watch one of those dog shows, you sit there and go, oh, but they're meaning it exactly what they mean. It's a female dog. Okay? So denotation and connotation are very different. And we got to look at how we apply and interpret the word meek versus weak. Okay? If you look at the Beatitudes, the actual meaning, okay, and beatitude means this. I looked this up because I've always heard Beatitudes, but I didn't really know what they meant. Actually, when I was a kid, I thought they were part of the Beatles band or something the Beatles did because it looks like Beetlitude. But beatitude is a state of utmost bliss. So if you can live your life according to the Beatitudes, you live in utmost bliss. And Jesus is trying to tell us in the famous Sermon on the Mount how to be happy, how to be blissful. Okay? And in our present day world, we often find the opposite of what Jesus told us we should have. Okay? So rather than be poor in spirit, or blessed are those that are poor in spirit, or blessed are those that are mourn, blessed are those that are meek, blessed are the hungry and thirsty after righteousness, blessed the merciful, blessed the pure in heart, blessed the peacemakers, and blessed are the persecuted. Instead, this is what we often find. Instead of pure in spirit, we find people with the rankest kind of pride, arrogance. Instead of mourners, we find pleasure seekers. Right? Instead of meekness, we find extreme arrogance. Right? Instead of hunger and after righteousness, we find an attitude, I'm rich, I don't need anything. Instead of mercy, we often find cruelty. Instead of peacemakers, we find people who love to quarrel and be resentful about things. And instead of rejoicing in mistreatment, we find people who say, we gotta fight back. The world in which we live is charged with this kind of culture. And if you don't believe me, just watch the news. Okay? Watch the news and look at the arrogance and the people who are just, I can do anything, I'm wealthy, I can make you do anything. Just the pride, the pleasure seekers, all of those kinds of things. pride and arrogance, resentfulness, evil images, and greed. Tozer says are the source of more human pain than any physical disease. I want to say that again. Jesus is trying to teach us that the opposite of these things are pride, arrogance, resentfulness, evil images, and greed. And that those things are really the source of more pain and misery in the world than any physical ailments that can come along. But into this world, God introduced that still small voice. And when Jesus told us that blessed are the meek, he knew it was true. Because Jesus doesn't have to guess at anything. Jesus was all God and all man, and so Jesus, when he spoke with authority. What he said was true because he was the voice of God. He knew and he knows what is true. And we often hear Jesus speak the word meek. And we need to get past the general semantics of that word. That's why I did the whole English thing there. We need to get past the general semantics of that word because it's not used in the way we view it. How it was used in the Beatitudes is not used in the way that we think. Okay? Meekness is not weakness. Now, I admit if I had everybody raise your hands and you think of meek, you would often think of kind of weak. Okay? But meekness is not weakness. Just because you're not in someone's face yelling, throwing a fit to get your way, or fighting something or someone does not mean you are weak. Okay? Years of teaching and working with middle school kids, I dealt with lots of in people's face and yelling, throwing fits to get your way, or fighting something or someone. And that was usually just with the parents. Okay? But it doesn't mean you're weak if you don't do that. Okay? Matthew 11:28-29 says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and I will find rest and you will find rest in your souls." Burdened and rest are in contrast here. You're burdened, you're rest. And you know what? Pride, arrogance, resentfulness, evil images, greed are the burden. What Jesus is talking about. He's talking about all that stuff we carry, that garbage we probably need to let go. But we're too proud and arrogant and resentful and even evil sometimes and greedy sometimes. That's our human nature. We don't let go. So we're burdened with them. We feel overwhelmed. And Jesus says, let go and receive rest. You can get some rest here. The meek person is not a mouse. Bold and as a lion and as strong as Samson. Tozer says that, meek people can be as bold as a lion, as strong as Samson, but they choose and win. Okay? Just learned I gotta back up here for a second. Bold as a lion and strong as Samson. And we just learned that the world will never see ourselves as God sees us. Okay? God's the one that will judge us. So the person, often people stop caring because they think people around us are judging us. But we're not being judged. We talked about judgment a little last week, I think it was, being judged. We're not being judged by each other. We are, but the thing is it doesn't matter because God does the judging. So whatever I think about anybody is my opinion. It doesn't really matter. When we discover that inward poverty, letting go of all that other stuff will bring us rest, we finally figure out that we can sit down and enjoy life a little more if we understand what really matters. Okay? We just sit down and understand what really matters. Jesus tried to tell us how to do this. All too often we didn't listen, or we didn't hear it in the right way, because he says you have to come to me just as a little child. And that's often confusing. How do we come just as a little child? It simply means little children don't care about what other people think about them. You ever given a child an expensive toy? And they had more fun with the box. Because they don't get that that's an expensive thing. Did you ever put them in a really expensive little dress and say, now, honey, you got to keep that clean. This is really expensive. It's dry clean only. And they don't care. They go roll in the mud. Oh, they don't care. It doesn't mean anything to them. Give them something expensive and new, and they just don't get it. We get frustrated because we attach the value to that piece. Okay? And it's only when they get older do they begin to understand envy and jealousy. And I think that's important to realize. It's only when kids get older do they understand envy and jealousy. Right? Although I think our dogs do, because they both have their own bone, but they'll only chew on one, and then they try to take it away from each other. So, don't know where that lies in doggy world, but same kind of thing. Tozer says the world is breaking under a load of pride and pretense. We are so prideful, and we are so full of pretense of showing what the image we want people to see, that we're breaking ourselves. The world is groaning under that. To become meek doesn't mean to become weak. It means letting go of the pride and the pretense. Letting go. The rest Jesus offers is meekness. And I don't mean the rest as in all, I mean the rest as in the ability to rest. Okay? The peace that Jesus offers is meekness. The blessed relief that comes when we accept ourselves and our circumstances. Okay? Poor, rich, beautiful, ugly, it doesn't matter. We all go down the same path in the end. Right? We all have different circumstances. Some of us have better circumstances than others. But that's my judgment. Maybe they don't think so. I know some people who are financially extremely well off, but their lives are a mess. Right? I know some people who are extremely poor, but their families are as close as if you crochet them together. They're happy. They know. Okay? The blessed relief that comes when we accept ourselves and our circumstances. Because no matter what, not everything's going to be perfect at all times. It's just not going to happen. And Matthew 11:28-29 reminds us of that. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. Amen. Let's open our hymnals to 488. And let's see how many verses we want to read. Let's just sing all 4 verses.